What's going on, guys? So it's new bike day, and in front of me is a very interesting bike. And it's a bike that I've never featured on my channel before from a brand that I've never featured on my channel before, and that's Troxus. So this specific brand reached out to me and they said, hey, you know what? We have some e-bikes you might be interested in. We'd love if you could evaluate and review some of our bikes. So this was provided to me for review and evaluation. And believe it or not, I actually already shot an entire video on this bike that I decided not to publish because I wanted to have it for a little bit longer and really be able to give you a true review and a true opinion of what I like about this bike, some things I may not like about the bike, but overall my impressions of this bike. They may have changed over the last several days that I've had an opportunity to use this bike. Hang tight, I'll be right back. All right, so real quick, let's talk e-mountain bikes. E-mountain bikes are a unique animal. I love mountain bikes in general. I'm not a big road bike fan personally. I understand people love to take them out on the road, love to go super fast and enjoy riding road bikes, but that's not me. I'm a big mountain bike person, and ever since e-mountain bikes have become more of a thing, I absolutely love riding my e-mountain bike just as much. Now, the e-mountain bike that I have, which I featured on the channel several times, is this Cannondale Mot Terra. So this is a carbon fiber e-mountain bike. When I got this bike, it had, let's just say, mid-range components on it. And most anybody who's into bicycling will tell you that what makes or breaks a bicycle oftentimes are the components. The frame absolutely is super important. It's absolutely critical, but your components can quickly add up to actually dwarf the cost of the frame itself. This being a carbon fiber frame definitely makes it more on the upper tier of e-mountain bikes. And when I bought this bike originally, it was almost $6,000. Since then, everything on this bike has been upgraded except the frame. The frame is what stayed. The front suspension fork was upgraded to a Fox 38. If you know anything about mountain biking, you'll know that that is the premier fork you can put on a mountain bike pretty much, at least for this type of application. I have a Fox center shock as well, which was also a very expensive upgrade. The brakes have been fully upgraded. The derailleur has been fully upgraded. The cassette's been upgraded. The seat post, the handlebars are carbon fiber. This bike started life at about a $6,000 bike, and right now it's closer to about $11,000 total. I know that's insane to so many folks, and I'm not trying to brag. I'm not. I'm just an enthusiast for the sport. I absolutely love it, and when I get extra money that I can put into a hobby, this is generally where that money goes. But this bike right here has been absolutely a phenomenal bike, and I love riding it, even though I don't have the terrain around here to really put this thing to the test. But why is it so important for you to know about this bike when we're talking about that bike? Well, let's jump back over to that one so you can know a little bit more about it. Okay, so like I said at the beginning of the video, I started this whole review process by creating an entire review video of this bike, talking about it, and I didn't feel as if it was going to be a great representation for what this bike truly is, because anytime you talk about a bike, there are going to be people that say, well, you can do this yourself, or you can build it yourself, or you can go and buy this brand or this brand or this brand that costs the same amount but might give you a better component here or there. And I truly understand that, because when I got this bike in, I did exactly that. I wanted to see what else I could find for the same price range and make a comparative analysis and find out really if this was the value that I thought it was going to be. And surprisingly, I actually came away still thinking that this is a better value than a lot of bikes that cost roughly the same amount. So how much does this bike sell for? It sells for a hair under $4,000, $3,999. Why do I feel that this bike at that price point is possibly a better value than some other e-mountain bikes that are maybe even a little bit less expensive, but from incredibly well-known e-mountain bike manufacturers? So first of all, from a component standpoint, again, that's typically what makes or breaks a bike. The components that you opt to put on it and your ability to move forward from there. Any higher end or even mid-tier e-mountain bike or mountain bike in general is typically going to be incredibly upgradable. You'll have components that come on the bike that are okay, maybe a little better than okay, maybe sometimes not better than okay, and you'll be able to upgrade those, because part of the sport of owning mountain bikes is your ability to change out components and upgrade to components over a period of time. I really like that capability with this bike. The components that come on it, they're mix. It's a really, really interesting mix of components that are really, really nice, components that are a little, what I would call too entry level, but some components that give this a distinctive advantage even over my Cannondale, which costs significantly more. Let's start with the stuff that is just kind of okay. So the first part we're going to focus on is this front suspension fork. So this is from a brand that I'd never heard of before. I had to research it. This is a coil sprung suspension fork, which means it's inevitably going to be a pretty dang heavy fork, but it does give you a lockout capability and the ability for you to adjust your compression. It's not a bad performing fork. I've ridden this bike around already, and I can honestly tell you that I feel the fork, it's definitely on the super entry level of this type of fork, but it performs well for what it is. And I think people realize that pretty dang often whenever they look at some of the forks that are available online that are designed to look like and compete against higher priced forks. So this definitely falls along the entry level aspect. However, this has a tapered head tube. So that means you have the ability to upgrade to almost any fork you want to go to that is higher end. And I'm planning on doing that. I actually have some spare forks that came off of some of my super expensive bikes, specifically my Cannondale, but I also have a fork that came off of my Santa Cruz, and both of those have enough length right here to be able to replace this if I want to do that upgrade. So that's the first component that I'm not super thrilled about. It's an okay component. It works well for this bike, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. However, this is one of those things that anytime you're looking at an e-mountain bike in this price point, you're going to be looking at relatively entry-level suspension components, even on bikes that are $1,000 more than this. They may have a name brand on it. It may be a RockShox, it may be a Suntour, but it's still not going to be amongst their higher end series. So to be fair, I wasn't really expecting a heck of a lot out of the front fork, and it's actually surprisingly nicer in terms of performance than I thought it was going to be. Now, as we get towards the center, we have this really cool Radon Suntour center shock. So we have 110 millimeters of travel up front, which is a pretty dang good amount. We have a 65-degree head tube angle, which is also pretty aggressive. That's pretty slack. That's not bad. And we have a Suntour Radon shock in the back, too. So this is what controls the back motion. And the mechanics of this right here is not what I would consider to be super evolutionary or groundbreaking, but it is a very tried and true way of managing rear suspension on a mountain bike. Okay, so now let's jump to some things that are surprisingly good on this bike, and some things that definitely make this in some ways more enjoyable than even my Cannondale for the average person. First of all, let's talk about the motor. So this is a mid-drive motor. It's not your typical hub drive that you would see on a lot of lower cost, lower tier mountain bikes. It's a mid-drive. It's made by Bafang, and this is not a bad brand, a bad name, or an unreliable setup. This is actually a really good setup, especially considering the fact that it's a 1,000-watt motor. What does that mean? That means that this thing has a tremendous amount of power, and because of that 1,000-watt motor and the fact that it's actually coupled to a really, really nice throttle up front, you have the ability to control this with the throttle only. So that is a huge advantage over my Cannondale. My Cannondale is power assist only, which is fine for those who just want to get a workout. When I ride my Cannondale, I have to be pedaling the entire time for the motor to be engaged. On this one, they give you a thumb control lever right here, which gives you the ability to use throttle only and use this thing as kind of like a dirt bike. It's really cool. It's really convenient, and it's the type of feature that you typically don't see on e-mountain bikes. Almost every e-mountain bike that exists out there that is what people would consider to be higher end is going to have pedal assist only. They're typically going to be paired to a Shimano or a Bosch, a mid-drive motor, but they're pedal assist only. And this does pedal assist, but it also gives you a throttle, and I really like that. Again, a feature that you typically don't see on e-mountain bikes. So that in itself, and the fact that it's 1,000 watts compared to most of them on your entry level or your lower cost, higher end mountain bikes, if that makes sense, are usually between 250 and maybe 500 watts or less. So this is a pretty dang powerful setup for an e-mountain bike, and I can definitely appreciate that. I like the fact that your actual crank arms are replaceable. You could easily upgrade these to a lighter, more expensive, higher end crank arm, which is really nice. You can also do that with your main chainring up here as well. So this does have a wide, narrow chainring up top, which keeps the chain on, and they even put an actual chain retention piece right here. So this chain guide keeps the chain from coming off. These are features that you typically don't see come standard on a lot of bikes. A lot of bikes you have to upgrade to those. When you get into your higher end bikes, yes, it's something you see more, but I really like the 1x10 drivetrain that this has. Plus, it has a 10-speed cassette in the back. It also has a Shimano Dior rear derailleur. So that right there is actually a pretty dang impressive piece to see on this bike. And it's designed so you could swap this out and you can easily upgrade this, where on a lot of bikes you can't. So this is really nice, the fact that they're putting a Shimano Dior railer in the back, plus the Shimano Dior 10-speed shifter up front. It has Tektro hydraulic disc brakes. Now, at this price point, hydraulic disc brakes are pretty much standard on any bike, but they are good performing brakes, and I'm having no problems with them at all. What I do like, though, is the fact that they're putting 203 millimeter rotors on the front instead of the typical 160, 180, or 200 millimeter rotors that you might see. So they're putting massive rotors on this, which is definitely something that's really nice. I do wish that they would have gone with dual piston brakes, but the brakes are definitely powerful. They have no problem stopping the bike, and it's been performing very well. This is boost geometry, which means that the width of this is extra wide, so it supports wider tires, which is really nice because most of your higher end components these days are going to also be boost in terms of the width. And one thing that makes this really nice is the fact that I can easily upgrade my wheel set, and I can upgrade other components up front and in the back, and I have the width to be able to accommodate modern wheels and tires, which is super, super nice. Plus, this has through axles, which are also something that you typically would see at this price point, and it's good to see that they're here and they are easily upgradable if you want to do that as well. It has an industry standard threadless headset up top, so you can easily change out your headset, you can easily change out your handlebars, and this is all going to accept any of your higher end components, which I have quite a few. So I might just go into my parts bin and start upgrading the heck out of this thing because I have the capability of doing that. Also, as we come to the back, this is actually a true memory foam saddle. Check that out. You can see how it compresses and takes a little while to go back to its original shape. Back here, you can see it does have a kickstand. Now, I am not a huge fan of kickstands, but I'll probably keep it on this bike. My other bikes don't have kickstands on them, at least my other mountain bikes don't, but I'll probably keep it on here just because, you know, I already pass bicycling judgment by taking them off my other bikes, and this bike, it's good to be able to drop a kickstand. But in the riding that I've done on this bike, a kickstand still has the same disadvantages that it has on any other mountain bike, where it does kind of move around a little bit, and you always take the risk that it's going to come down while you're riding or that it could catch something. So not a big fan of kickstands, even though I will probably keep it on this bike. Overall, though, this bike is super cool. It has pedal assist up to 28 miles per hour, throttle only up to 20 miles per hour. It has a light sensor on the front headlight, which is really nice. Basically, it turns on at night, turns off when it's bright outside, so that's really nice. Okay, let's give it a shot. This is throttle only. Yeah, that suspension works. Okay, so that was a lot of fun. And real quickly, I'm not going to even try to imagine that this bike is at the same level as my Cannondale in terms of true performance and feel. So overall, the rear suspension on this bike felt really, really good. I did like that. I might want to dial it in a little bit more. The front fork was a bit stiff, but it wasn't bad. But My plan with this bike is to enjoy it for a while and then upgrade it. Start doing upgrades to it and see where I can go. See how much I can put into this bike, and eventually if we can get this thing at or near the same performance as a bike that costs, you know, $10,000 more. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.